She vanished in silk and candlelight. On the night of her engagement in 1860, Annabel Marlowe, sole heiress to a crumbling English dynasty, stepped away from the ballroom and was never seen again. No farewell. No note. No trace. For decades, the official story was silence. But silence cracks, eventually. And when it did, what emerged from the walls of Marlo Manor wasn't just a clue. It was a confession carved in bone. What happened to Annabel Marlowe? Why did her family bury the truth? And what else still sleeps behind the facades of history's most revered bloodlines? Tell us your theory in the comments. And if you're drawn to the shadows where legacy meets horror, subscribe to Host of Silence for more stories like this. Now, let's go back to where it all began. A candlelit estate, a girl in white, and a night that was never meant to end. The year was 1860, and a perpetual twilight seemed to cling to the ancient stones of Marlo Manor in Devon. The grand house, once a beacon of aristocratic pride, now sagged under the weight of its own decay, its imposing facade marred by peeling render and windows that stared out like vacant eyes. The sprawling grounds, once meticulously manicured, had surrendered to the wild embrace of nature, overgrown with thorny brambles and shadowed by ancient, gnarled oaks that whispered secrets in the relentless coastal wind. The air itself, thick with the scent of damp earth and neglect, carried an unspoken melancholy, a palpable sense of decline that permeated every dust-laden corridor and every echoing chamber. Within these crumbling walls resided Annabel Marlowe, a woman of 24 years, whose spirit, though confined by circumstance, remained unyielding and acutely perceptive. Her education, far exceeding the typical expectations for a woman of her station, had sharpened her intellect, allowing her to see beyond the polished veneer of society, to discern the rot that festered beneath. Her days were a quiet rebellion, spent poring over forbidden texts in the cavernous, unheated library, or sketching the desolate beauty of the surrounding moorland, a stark contrast to the stifling reality of her impending future. A deep disquiet, a constant hum beneath her skin, was her loyal companion, for she sensed the true nature of the transaction about to unfold, a grotesque trade of her very being for the illusion of salvation. The family's precipitous fall from grace had reached its nadir, their once considerable fortune having evaporated like morning mist, leaving behind only the husk of their former prominence. The solution, as dictated by the patriarch, Sir Reginald Marlowe, was as ancient as it was brutal, a strategic marriage. Annabel was to be bound to Nathaniel Wexham, a man of 29, whose family, newly risen in industrial wealth, possessed a reputation as opaque and unsettling as the Marlowe's own. Publicly, Wexham presented a facade of cultivated charm, his smile disarmingly smooth, his eyes holding a calculated glint. Yet, beneath this veneer of urbanity, Annabel instinctively perceived a coldness, a predatory stillness that mirrored the whispers she had begun to hear about the Wexham enterprise. Whispers of colonial ventures, of illicit trades, of human lives treated as mere commodities. This union was not merely an alliance of families. It was a desperate pact sealed in the shadows, a desperate grasp at solvency that threatened to drag Annabel into an abyss she could only dimly perceive. Sir Reginald Marlowe, aged 58, was the architect of this impending doom, his once authoritative bearing now tainted by a desperate, almost feral urgency. His once immaculate attire was often creased, his once proud shoulders stooped by the crushing weight of insolvency. He moved through the house like a phantom, his presence a constant, oppressive reminder of the family's ruin and his own complicity in darker dealings. His eyes, once sharp with ambition, now held a haunted, evasive quality, betraying the unspeakable lengths to which he had resorted. His involvement in the shadowy world of human trafficking a festering secret that clung to him like a shroud. The marriage of his daughter was not a matter of sentiment, but a chillingly pragmatic maneuver, a final, desperate throw of the dice to avert total financial annihilation and perhaps to silence inconvenient truths. Lady Honoria Marlowe, Annabel's mother, a woman of 52, existed as little more than a spectral presence within the manor. Her once vibrant spirit had been systematically eroded by years of silent suffering, by the weight of unspoken horrors she had witnessed and, perhaps, enabled through her profound inaction. Her days were a blur of quiet, almost imperceptible movements, her hands trembling as they reached for the decanter, her only solace found in the numbing embrace of gin. Her eyes, once capable of warmth, now held a vacant, distant gaze, reflecting a mind that had retreated into the depths of alcoholic denial, a desperate attempt to escape the horrifying truths that had marked her soul. She was a living testament to the destructive power of secrets, a fragile, fading echo of a woman who knew too much and could do nothing but wither. Her silence was a heavy blanket, suffocating Annabelle with its implied complicity and despair. Beyond the immediate confines of the manor, the local villagers, a superstitious and insular folk, harbored their own disquieting murmurs about the Marlowe estate. Tales, whispered in hushed tones around hearths and in shadowed lanes, spoke of servants who had arrived seeking honest work, only to vanish without a trace, their meager belongings left behind, their families never receiving word. The number of these disappearances had steadily increased in recent years, coinciding chillingly with the family's financial decline. There was also the matter of the old well, located deep within the overgrown woods bordering the property, a structure that had been inexplicably walled up decades ago, its dark opening sealed with crude masonry. The villagers spoke of strange sounds emanating from its depths on moonless nights, of a chilling draught that carried a faint, metallic scent. These unsettling tales, though never explicitly confirmed, wove themselves into the very fabric of the estate's grim reputation, creating an aura of premonition and profound mystery that seemed to coil around the ancient house and, by extension, tighten its grip around Annabelle's fate. She felt the chill of these stories, not as mere folklore, but as a creeping, tangible dread, a premonition that the secrets of Marlo Manor, and the desperate acts of her father, were about to ensnare her in a darkness from which there might be no escape. The loyal Elias Morton, a trusted servant of 32, moved through the house with a quiet diligence, his presence a subtle comfort, though even he could not dispel the pervasive sense of a coming storm. The air thickened with unspoken truths, and Annabelle, ever watchful, felt the cold tendrils of her destiny closing in. The grand ballroom of Marlo Manor pulsed with a deceptive luminescence. Crystal chandeliers, their facets catching and scattering the light, cast a glittering sheen over the assembled gentry. The air, thick with the scent of lilies and expensive perfumes, hummed with the superficial gaiety of an engagement ball. Annabel Marlowe, draped in a gown of ivory lace that seemed to mock her internal turmoil, moved through the waltz with a practiced grace. Her lips curved into a smile, a fragile mask expertly crafted to conceal the gnawing disquiet beneath. Her eyes, however, betrayed the performance, darting across the room, lingering on faces, searching for an unspoken truth. Nathaniel Wexham, her chosen fiancé, held her hand with a possessive tenderness that felt more like a vice. His public persona, a masterpiece of cultivated charm, drew admiring glances and murmured praises. He was the epitome of a gentleman, his laughter resonant, his compliments smoothly delivered. Yet, Annabelle felt a chill radiating from him, a coldness that seeped through his polite veneer. His gaze, when it met hers, held an unsettling depth, a knowing glint that suggested complicity in something vast and unholy. He watched Sir Reginald Marlowe across the room, a silent understanding passing between them, a look that solidified Annabelle's growing suspicion that Nathaniel was not merely an unwitting participant in her family's salvation, but an active architect of its darker facets. The polished surface of his character was, she now understood, a deliberate concealment, a shroud over a soul as tainted as the industrial soot that clung to his family's immense fortune. The oppressive weight of the charade became unbearable. A sudden, desperate need for air, for clarity, seized Annabelle. She excused herself with a murmured apology, her movements fluid as she navigated the throng, slipping away from the suffocating warmth of the ballroom and into the colder, quieter corridors. Her steps, initially aimless, found a purpose, drawn by an unspoken premonition toward Sir Reginald's study. The heavy oak door, usually locked, stood ajar, a sliver of candlelight escaping into the gloom. A faint, almost imperceptible rustle of paper emanated from within. Cautiously, Annabelle pushed the door open further. The room was empty, save for the flickering candle on the large mahogany desk. A ledger lay open, its pages filled with neat, precise handwriting, not Sir Reginald's, but one she vaguely recognized from the family's estate manager. Her gaze fell upon the columns, her mind struggling to reconcile the mundane appearance of figures with the horrifying implications they slowly unveiled. Dates, names, sums of money, and then, under the description column, entries that turned her blood to ice. Consignment, Essex Farm. Passage, Colonial Adoption. Orphanage Placement, New World. The numbers associated with these entries were astronomical, far exceeding the modest sums that would be expected for legitimate orphan care or migration. A gasp caught in her throat, a sound she quickly suppressed. Her eyes darted to another document tucked beneath the ledger, a crumpled letter bearing the seal of the Wexham Industrial Conglomerate. It spoke of secured quotas and shipment schedules for undocumented cargo, referring to young, pliable assets destined for re-education and labor in the distant colonies. The language was clinical, devoid of humanity, describing children as commodities. The full, macabre truth crashed down upon her with the force of a physical blow. Sir Reginald Marlowe, her father, was not merely bankrupt. He was a trafficker in human lives, selling peasant children from the surrounding estates, innocent souls torn from their families under the guise of adoption, shipped across the oceans to the burgeoning British colonies. And Nathaniel Wexham, her fiancé, was not just aware. His family's wealth was irrevocably intertwined with this monstrous trade, built upon the silent screams of the stolen. A soft click behind her sent a jolt of terror through Annabelle. Lady Honoria Marlowe stood in the doorway, her figure shrouded in the dim light, a half-empty decanter of sherry clutched in her hand. Her eyes, usually vacant, held a flicker of ancient sorrow, a haunted recognition of the horror Annabelle had just uncovered. There was no denial in Lady Honoria's expression, only a profound, weary resignation, a silent confirmation of the unspeakable. She knew. She had always known. The weight of that shared, unspoken knowledge hung heavy in the air, a suffocating shroud of complicity and despair. Lady Honoria turned, her silent retreat a chilling testament to her own enduring, alcohol-fueled denial, leaving Annabelle alone with the damning evidence. The initial shock gave way to a cold, burning rage, quickly followed by a desperate resolve. Annabelle would not, be a party to this atrocity. The thought of marrying Nathaniel, of her very existence being tethered to such a vile enterprise, was unthinkable. Escape was no longer an option. It was an absolute necessity. Her mind raced, piecing together fragments of possibilities, fleeting memories of kindness, of loyalty. Her thoughts settled on Elias Morton, the long-serving household servant. Elias, with his quiet demeanor and perceptive eyes, had always seemed to possess an understanding beyond his station. Later that evening, during a brief lull in the ball's festivities, Annabelle sought him out. She found him in the dimly lit pantry, polishing silver, his face a study in stoic concentration. Their interaction was swift, a silent communion of desperate glances and subtle gestures. Annabelle's eyes, wide with a terror she could not voice, conveyed an urgent plea. Elias, without a word, met her gaze, his own eyes reflecting a sudden, profound comprehension of her plight. A barely perceptible nod, a slight shift in his posture, communicated his unwavering loyalty, his readiness to aid her. He had understood the unspoken request, the desperate urgency that radiated from her. He was her ally, her only hope. Back in her chambers, the last vestiges of the ball's distant music fading, Annabelle's heart pounded with a mixture of fear and burgeoning hope. A soft scratch at her door, almost imperceptible, drew her attention. She opened it cautiously. No one was there, but a small, folded piece of paper lay on the threshold. Her fingers trembled as she picked it up, unfolding it to reveal a single precise line of elegant script. "Be ready at 11 p.m. The note, stark and undeniable, was the confirmation. The plan was in motion. Elias Morton was true to his silent promise. The night held a chance for freedom, or perhaps a descent into an even darker unknown. The grand engagement ball, a shimmering facade of opulence and social pretense, reached its zenith in the Marlowe family's ancestral hall. Annabel Marlowe, resplendent in a gown that belied the turmoil within her, moved through the throng of well-wishers and curious gazes. Her smile remained fixed, a practiced mask, yet her eyes, sharp and restless, repeatedly darted towards the grand-grandfather clock positioned near the entrance. Each chime of the quarter hour resonated not as a marker of celebration, but as an inexorable countdown to a desperate act. The air, thick with the scent of lilies and the murmur of polite conversation, seemed to press in on her, amplifying the thumping of her own heart. Nathaniel Wexham, her intended, moved beside her. His public charm a stark contrast to the chilling knowledge of his family's entanglement in the very darkness Annabelle sought to escape. He remained oblivious, or feigned ignorance, to the subtle shift in her demeanor, lost in the superficiality of the evening. Shortly after the clock tolled 10, its resonant bongs swallowed by the celebratory din, Annabelle executed her meticulously planned departure. She drifted towards a less frequented side door, her movements graceful and inconspicuous amidst the swirling waltzers. No one seemed to note her quiet exit, her figure vanishing into the shadowed corridor, a ghost slipping from a dream. The ball continued its joyous charade, oblivious to the void left by her absence. The discovery of Annabelle's disappearance was not immediate. Hours later, as the first guests began to depart and the revelry started to wane, a maid, preparing Annabelle's room for the night, found it in an unsettling state. Annabelle's silken slippers lay discarded near the dressing table, a small, intimate detail that spoke of a sudden, unplanned departure, yet contradicted the deliberate nature of her escape. The windows of the chamber were firmly latched from the inside, their heavy velvet drapes drawn, presenting an impenetrable barrier to the outside world. The door, however, stood ajar, a silent invitation or an ominous sign. On the delicate rosewood escritoire, a single folded note rested beneath a silver inkwell, its presence a cryptic addition to the perplexing scene. The room, otherwise undisturbed, presented a riddle of conflicting evidence, suggesting both a hurried flight and an impossible confinement. Panic, initially a quiet whisper, quickly escalated into a clamor throughout the grand estate. Sir Reginald Marlowe, his face a mask of feigned paternal concern, orchestrated an immediate, albeit superficial, search of the grounds. His commands were sharp, his demeanor authoritative, yet beneath the surface, a chilling calculation was at play. The local constabulary was summoned, their arrival marked by the clatter of a horse-drawn carriage on the gravel drive. Constable Davies, a man of limited imagination and even less ambition, led the perfunctory investigation. His men scoured the immediate vicinity of the manor, their lanterns casting dancing shadows that revealed nothing conclusive. The official inquiry yielded precisely what Sir Reginald desired: nothing. There were no discernible footprints on the damp earth outside the side door Annabelle had used, an impossibility given the recent rain, suggesting a careful, pre-planned evasion or a deliberate obfuscation. No witnesses, beyond the initial vague accounts of Annabelle moving through the ballroom, could recall her leaving the house itself. The vast, sprawling gardens and the surrounding woodlands offered no trace, no discarded ribbon, no broken branch, nothing to indicate a hurried flight or a struggle. The police, either through sheer incompetence or a more insidious, unspoken influence, failed spectacularly to connect Annabelle's sudden absence with that of Elias Morton. The loyal family valet, Elias, had also vanished from the estate on the same night, yet his disappearance went largely unnoticed for a full 2 days. His station in the household rendered him virtually invisible, his presence deemed so inconsequential that his absence caused no immediate alarm. No one, it seemed, truly cared enough about Elias Morton to register his non-existence until Annabelle's plight forced a re-evaluation of all missing persons. The police, presented with this secondary disappearance, dismissed any linkage, content to treat them as separate, unrelated incidents of desertion. Sir Reginald Marlowe, seizing control of the narrative with ruthless efficiency, firmly rejected any suggestion of foul play regarding Annabelle. He asserted, with an air of aggrieved certainty, that his daughter had, in a fit of youthful rebellion, absconded with Elias Morton, the lowly servant. This convenient fabrication neatly explained both disappearances while simultaneously protecting the Marlowe family's unsavory secrets and their lucrative, illicit partnerships. To solidify this official declaration, he personally ordered Annabelle's room sealed, the heavy oak door locked and an official wax seal pressed over the keyhole, a definitive gesture intended to prevent any further scrutiny or the accidental discovery of inconvenient truths. The room became a tomb for secrets, a physical manifestation of the cover-up. Lady Honoria Marlowe, Annabelle's mother, observed the unfolding events with a chilling detachment, her already fragile mind receding further into the fog of denial. The revelation of her daughter's flight, or rather, the carefully constructed explanation of it, pushed her deeper into the abyss of alcoholism that had become her constant companion. Her eyes, once capable of expressing a quiet despair, now held only a vacant, distant gaze, reflecting the flickering light of the gas lamps without truly seeing. She made no attempt to challenge Sir Reginald's pronouncements, no gesture to question the official narrative. The weight of what she knew, the silent horrors that had long haunted the Marlowe name, had finally crushed her spirit entirely, rendering her incapable of confronting the truth or taking any meaningful action. She became a silent, suffering monument to the family's pervasive rot, her continued existence a testament to the suffocating power of their dark secrets. The false narrative took root, becoming the accepted truth within the hallowed, yet tainted, halls of the Marlowe estate. Annabel Marlowe, the the restless heiress, was now officially nothing more than a runaway, her future, and perhaps her very life, erased by a carefully constructed lie. 36 years had passed since the Marlowe estate had last known anything resembling domestic tranquility. The year was 1896, and the grand, yet increasingly dilapidated, country house stood on the market no longer. Its long, shadowed halls and crumbling facades had finally found a new owner in a prominent French banker, a man with ambitious plans for restoration and modernization. The sale marked a definitive end to an era, a quiet closing of a chapter that had long been stained by unspoken horrors. Renovation work commenced with a vigor previously unknown to the old house. Dust sheets covered ancestral portraits, and the rhythmic clang of hammers echoed where once only hushed whispers had dared to tread. Teams of laborers, supervised by meticulous architects, systematically began to strip away the accretions of decades, revealing the bones of the structure beneath. It was during this extensive overhaul, specifically within the confines of what had once been Sir Reginald Marlowe's private study, that the true, horrifying legacy of the Marlowe family began to unfurl. The study, a room steeped in the oppressive scent of old leather and forgotten secrets, contained a massive, intricately carved bookshelf that dominated one entire wall. Unlike other furnishings that were easily moved or dismantled, this particular piece of joinery resisted all attempts at relocation. Its immobility puzzled the workman, who, upon closer inspection, discovered it was not merely a piece of furniture, but an integral part of the wall itself, fixed with unseen mechanisms. Curiosity, then determination, propelled their efforts. With crowbars and sheer force, they managed to pry the heavy structure away from the stone. Behind the bookshelf, concealed with an almost obsessive thoroughness, lay not a solid wall, but an opening. A narrow, dark aperture led to a rough-hewn stone staircase, descending into the earth. The air that wafted from the depths was cold and still, carrying with it the faint, metallic tang of decay. It was a place that had been deliberately sealed, hidden from the light of day for decades, a testament to a truth too terrible to bear exposure. The atmosphere surrounding this discovery was one of profound, somber inevitability, a silent acknowledgment that the house had finally decided to yield its deepest, most guarded secret. With torches held aloft, the foreman and a small group of workers descended the crude steps. The descent was short, leading into a small, subterranean chamber, roughly excavated from the earth and lined with crude stone. The space was utterly devoid of light, air, or any sign of recent human presence. It was a tomb. Within the suffocating confines of the chamber, two distinct forms lay on the damp earth, their outlines barely discernible in the flickering torchlight. They were skeletons, stark white against the dark soil, their forms eerily preserved by the cool, dry conditions. One skeleton, unmistakably male, lay sprawled in what appeared to be a desperate, final struggle. The tattered remnants of a servant's uniform clung to its bones, a faded, once familiar livery that marked it as Elias Morton, the loyal house servant who had vanished without a trace so many years ago. Beside him, in a position that suggested a final, shared fate, lay the second skeleton. This one was smaller, more delicate, and clearly female. Around its bony frame, the decayed remnants of a fine ball gown, once a vibrant silk, now lay in tatters, a somber shroud. Nestled among the fragile ribcage, where a heart once beat, was a tarnished silver brooch, still remarkably intact. Its design, a distinct, intricately carved crest, bore the unmistakable heraldry of the Marlowe family. It was the last irrefutable identifier of Annabel Marlowe, the restless heiress, whose disappearance had been a quiet scandal, quickly forgotten in the annals of society. The scene within the sealed chamber spoke a truth that resonated through the silent house. The evidence, though skeletal and grim, was irrefutable. Annabelle, in her final days, had clearly discovered the horrific extent of her father, Sir Reginald Marlowe's, involvement in the clandestine human trafficking network. The presence of Elias Morton, the loyal servant, alongside her, confirmed their desperate, shared attempt to escape the confines of the house and the monstrous secrets it held. Their positions, the signs of struggle, and the manner of their concealment within the sealed chamber, all pointed to a violent, premeditated end, a final, brutal suppression of truth by those who profited from the shadows. The discovery also implicitly confirmed the deep complicity of the Wexham family, whose fortunes were inextricably linked to the Marlowe's illicit trade. The revelation of the sealed chamber also provided the chilling, final piece to an older, lingering mystery. For years, the The local lore had whispered about a walled-up well in the overgrown, neglected back garden of the Marlowe estate, its purpose unknown, its secrets guarded by crumbling stone. Now, with the chamber exposed, the connection became horrifyingly clear. The well, long thought to be merely a disused water source, was revealed to be a secondary, concealed entrance to the very chamber where Annabelle and Elias had met their end. The circle of mystery, spanning decades, was finally closed, its gruesome truth laid bare. The subsequent investigation, though delayed by decades, slowly pieced together the fragments of what had transpired. Sir Reginald Marlowe, the architect of so much misery, had himself succumbed to cholera 3 years prior. In 1893, his death a quiet, unremarked event that spared him the ultimate reckoning for his deeds. Lady Honoria Marlowe, Annabelle's mother, had died years earlier, her life consumed by a quiet, alcoholic denial, her complicit silence a heavy burden until her final breath. Nathaniel Wexham, the chosen suitor, had continued to prosper, his family's wealth built upon a foundation of colonial exploitation and human suffering, his charm a veneer over a dark complicity. The formal revelation of Annabelle and Elias's fate, confirmed by the grim discovery, sent a ripple of shock through the polite society that had long dismissed their disappearance as a simple elopement or flight. The Marlowe lineage, already weakened by scandal and financial ruin, was officially declared extinct in 1912, its name forever tarnished by the horrifying truth unearthed in its ancestral home. The story of Annabel Marlowe, the educated heiress, and Elias Morton, the loyal servant, became a chilling testament to the extent of the cruelty that had permeated the family, and the decades of complicit silence that had allowed such darkness to fester, hidden beneath the veneer of respectability. The chilling tale of Annabel Marlowe isn't just a whisper from the past. It's a stark reminder of how deeply evil can entwine itself within the gilded cages of society, how silence can become a suffocating shroud, and how some secrets, once unearthed, refuse to stay buried. It forces us to confront the unsettling truth that sometimes the true monsters aren't lurking in the shadows, but presiding in plain sight, their hands stained by the very foundations of their wealth and power. Annabelle sought freedom from a legacy of darkness, but was she truly seeking an escape, or merely becoming another part of the horrifying tale, destined to echo through the forgotten corners of history? What do you think became of Annabelle and Elias? Did they find a fleeting moment of freedom before being swallowed whole, or did their very attempt to escape simply lead them deeper into the abyss? Share your theories and your thoughts on the insidious nature of the secrets that haunted the Marlowe estate in the comments below. And if you dare to delve deeper into the forgotten horrors and unsettling truths of history, make sure to hit that subscribe button and join our growing community of truth seekers.